That looks fantastic. Vicky Jiracki, the KC region, the SCCA National Office, the Kansas region, Ron and Monica Shaw, Linda Miklovec, Sandra Intrigan, Bobby West, Mary Patterson, the Ozark Mountain region, the Salina region, the Nebraska region, Ken Reagan, and finally Alpine Lithographics and Cliff Johnson. And Tony G. Very good. So all of you are well aware of how this works now. I've been in song and dance and music awards, and so we're just going to usher all of them right in now. In the late 1860s, Mark Twain penned several letters as a traveling correspondent from San Francisco Daily, Alta, California. In 1876, he somehow convinced the Alta to pay him a stipend to travel abroad. This culminated in a 5-month trip through Europe and the Middle East. In all, Twain would write 51 letters to the Alta, and it would later become the basis for publishing his Innocents Abroad in 1869. Now, Innocents rarely ranks highly for Twain enthusiasts. You'd be hard-pressed to find it on any top 10 list. However, without it, travel writing as we know it today honestly wouldn't exist. Granted, it's no 7 Years in Tibet or Blue Highways or Eat, Pray, Love, but they all followed in Twain's footsteps. And here's an example why. In one letter he wrote, quote, "Nothing so liberates a man and expands the kindly instincts that nature put in him as travel and contact with many kinds of people." End quote. The underlying theme that Twain often returns to in these letters is that people should travel. They should get out of their comfort zones and explore the world around them. Yes, it can be scary and oftentimes difficult, and sometimes testing your personal boundaries ends you in a Colorado tire wall. But I was hoping I would get a laugh. The pain that it still replays in my head. But travel ultimately produces adventure, and adventure produces great stories. We have an opportunity with the coming season to branch out of our comfort zone, to go to racing events and go racing just in general in ways that are outside of our personal norms. So, to inspire you to spread your wings, we have gathered here tonight award winners from last year and amazing storytellers. So to kick things off, I would like to invite Bobby to the podium to introduce us to the executive committee members who will once again retain their posts and keep the trains running on time. Bobby.
First, I'll read off the outgoing REs that went off the board because we do owe them a debt of gratitude for taking on the challenge. Britt Taylor of Kansas Region, Chris Kern of Kansas City Region, John Sharp of Mid-South Region, Mark Cancel of Oklahoma Region, Dave, you know Dave Z. Of Nebraska. I never was good with foreign languages. Bruce Bettinger of Wichita, and Todd Swain of Neola. This year's board is comprised of Chris Eden, Arkansas Region, Eric Falsgraf with DMVR, James Cahill of Kansas, Paula Deal of Kansas City, Thomas Lackey of Mid-South, Steve, you know I haven't tried this name. All right. Ducharme? Cool. Nebraska Region. Jason Bainey of Neola. Stephen Sharp of Oklahoma. Ozark Mountain, Sam Henry. Monty Rands of Salina, Peter Zecker, St. Louis, Chris Alvin, Southern Illinois, and Jacob Lynn of Wichita. I'm your chair of the committee. I'm Bobby West, Mid-South Region. Chris Kern of Kansas City Region is your vice chair. Charlene Bettinger, Wichita Region, is your secretary. And Betty Martin, what region are you? Neola Region is your treasurer. A couple of notes from the meeting this afternoon, if you didn't sit through it all. The executive committee approved the support of the MiDiv time trials series, so that is going to go forward. There was an issue from last year that we discussed on the England Stipe Trophy. And for those of you that do not know, that trophy is 37 plus years old. It has the name of every recipient. Every recipient has had a year to take care of it, more or less. So when we went to try to refurbish the trophy, it was not possible. So it was decided to make a replica with all of the inscriptions of all the recipients, as well as the origin of the trophy, which currently is a piece of paper on the bottom, and have that. We will retire the original trophy, will be sent to SCCA Foundation archives for preservation and possible display down the road. The 1 mild drawback to that is that the new trophy, with all of the etchings and everything, comes at a cost of approximately $800. So we are seeking donations to cover the cost of the new trophy. We already have received several donations, but if you are willing or have a desire to make a contribution for this new trophy, please see Betty Martin, and she'll be glad to put it in the fund. Okay? And that's all I have. I'll turn it back over to you.
Bobby? Donations pouring in right now. Fantastic.
I need a marker to be sure this is real.
They're wanting to verify it. Very good. So I think one of the things that we learned from that is this is pretty familial, right? We're all on a first name basis. And to that end, because some of you are doctors and lawyers by profession, when you do fill out the bids on the silent auction, legibly, please. Because I'm going to later. So it's just going to go much better if I can get it. Next up, I would like to invite Dan to the podium to discuss outgoing DAs and present awards and introduce the new DAs. Where is... There he is. Dan.
The DA for scrutineering for last year and this year is going to remain Ann Boland. Thank you. The DA for timing and scoring remains the same, Charlene Bettinger. The DA for race administration remains the same, Monica Shaw. The DA for START, who's not here this weekend, is Adam Miller, and he will remain the same. The DA for registration is also not here, but will remain the same again for this next year, is Sheila Burkett. The points keeper going to be Rocky Entrigan, which is not changed and is not anticipated to change through the remainder of this century. The scheduler last year was Frank Derringer, and he is going to remain the scheduler, but he's being assisted this year by Neil Cox, who had it the previous year. Frank is not here. What am I missed? I missed one thing.
You missed 2 DAs.
Vicki is, Vicki, correct. Thank you, Vicki. Just speak up. Vicki is pit rid still.
Never say no.
FNC is Justice. The other two roles, which are not really DAs, but the Assistant Executive Steward and Driver Licensing Administrator remains Bob Herman, and the Assistant Executive Steward, who is actually the Executive Steward nominee for next year, is Jim Richardson, and neither are here.
That whole doesn't change the century, doesn't apply to all of us, right? That's just, okay, just right.
It's a lifetime position.
Much appreciated.
Like the Supreme Court judge.
It's a for life appointment, or a life sentence, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, I think so. So, before we get to the individual race awards, this year at the National Convention, MiDiv won several awards and was acknowledged for several different items. And we've got 4 here, but I know that there were a couple more. It's honestly too much to list, but I'm going to give you just a quick rundown of what was presented at the national level for the division. So this is all of you, congratulations, in helping make the division what it is and helping the individual's name really excel and become the absolute best representations of what MiDiv stands for. So first, recipient Richard Beretta received the Robert B. Ridges Award for outstanding leadership, expertise, and contribution to the Road Rally program. Jim Rowland, we went back and forth on what the actual name of this award is, but we ended up on the Dirty Cup for outstanding leadership, expertise, and contributions to the Rally Cross program. Chris Kern for the John McGill Award, which I'm to understand is just for looking so damn handsome. It's either that or most hats that you can possibly wear in a single race season. One of the two. And then finally, the Kansas City region received the John Burke Award for outstanding growth. So big compliments to the Kansas City region. Well done. And all of those roles take a tremendous amount of time. I know that's it's no surprise to anyone here in the room, but it is fantastic for individuals and regions that make up our community, our family, recognized at the national level. So congratulations again. For additional, actually we're going to move right into the solo division awards. Al? Oh, I'm wrong. Sorry. Chris Albin. This is why they gave me the lavalier, so I can walk around and be kind of light. Chris Albin is going to announce something. Okay, bye.
Well, that's Andy's day. Yes, it is. Okay. Well, this award is a big deal. A really, really big deal. But the recipients are a big deal as well. Now, I have notes for this, but I don't need the notes because they are most people in this room that have anything to do with road racing and the Midwest Division already should know, these individuals are an integral part of our road racing series and have been for a number of years. I can count on seeing them at the track every time I go, and either they're even if they're telling me something I did that probably wasn't as smart as it should have been, but they're always there, and they're always just behind the scenes, out in front, whether it's on a corner, whether it's being chief of everything, not just one chief of this or chief of that, chief of everything. These two have done it all. And so I'm not going to drag this out. This was a big deal when these come across the board. When their nomination came up, it was really easy for me to go on and on. Anyway, the recipient of the Member of Excellence is Ron and Monica Shaw.
I guess needless to say, I think you can all see you got us both. Wow. You got it talking.
I'm kind of speechless, but this is something obviously never expected. We just do what we do because we love it, love the people. We never expect anything for what we do. It's just for the love of the sport and everybody in it.
And I will get you. I didn't know until I'm sitting there looking at her saying, what word is this? I
don't know who makes the determination of who the...
Well, you were nominated in the board of directors of Sevens.
Wow. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Very humble.
See you at the track, Chris. It's a durable one.
Pretty wide wheel.
And even more amazing, for those of you that know Ron has made a few words. So for him to say, a quick story, and then I promise we'll move on. It was one of my very first races in the region, and I was working Hallett, turn 9 with Ron. They had put him with me because they didn't know who I was, and wanted to make sure that somebody seasoned was there at an odd corner that can get squirrely sometimes. Two cars got into each other, and there was a change of position, and I was on phones. Ron was working the yellow, and Monica was in control. And the incident happened, I called it in. Monica knows, obviously, who is with me, and she asked if my coworker saw anything. Ron simply replied, and I relay this because I'm on the phone. Relay this to Ron. Ron replies, nope.
I didn't want to do that paperwork.
That's it. All right, Al, I picked out one time. I promise I won't do it again. You sure? I promise. Please come. Al is going to announce the solo winners individually.
Okay, I'll break
by class, again, broken down by region. In Super Street R, Frank Weatharn. From Kansas City, in East Street Ladies, Janet Bauman. G Street, Raymond Peterick. Street Touring R, Bob Buxbaum. Street Touring Pony, Joshua Holsworth. A Street Prepared, Frank Finks. Street Modified, Jerry Irvine. C Prepared, myself. F Modified, Dan Wheeler. And F Modified Ladies, Jessica Dorn. From Mid-South, it's a Gill Suite. C Street, Doug Gill. C Street Ladies, Lori Gill. Cart Modified, Dana Gill. From Nebraska, B Street, Joey Green. E Street, James Green. F Street, John Lorando. F Street Ladies, Ann Lorando. And Cam Sport, Marcia Haynes. From Northeast Oklahoma, D Street, Brad Holliday. Street Touring Ultra, Kevin Murphy. Street Touring Extreme, Brian Phipps. B Street Prepared, Chase Gordon. From Oklahoma, Cam C, WB Cephas. Street Modified Front Wheel Drive, Sean Adams. Heritage Classic Race, Danny Thomas. Ozark Mountain in E Street Prepared, Mark Foley. From Salina, we have B Street Ladies, Susan Pulse. X Prepared, Brian Teff Jr. And from Wichita, we have in A Street, Jim Gilbert. E Street Ladies, Sharon Brillhart. H Street, Russell Bloom. H Street Ladies, Lady Bloom. Street Touring Sport, Johnny Wang. And Junior Cart A, Mason Herrick. And we had, I believe it's 9 people from MiDiv win national championships. So they are in D Street Ladies, Julie Eaton from Nebraska. H Street Ladies, Lady Bloom from Wichita. Street Touring Sport, Ron Williams from Kansas, in what is being described as the most protested car at nationals. Let's see, Super Street Prepared, Joe Tharp from Des Moines Valley. F Street Prepared, Dan Costello from Nebraska. F Street Prepared Ladies, Andrea Alvin from Southern Illinois. C-Mod Ladies, Sue Eccles, Nebraska. Junior Cart A, Mason Herrick, Wichita. And Junior Cart B, Carter Eaton from Nebraska. And as a follow-up, Mason Herrick also won the McClintock Berry Award, which is the junior karting version of the Triad Award for a second consecutive year. So those are the we also have 2 end-of-year awards that we give out, one for Driver of the Year and one for the Sharberg Spirited Sport Award. I don't think either recipient is here tonight, but our Driver of the Year was Joey Green out of Nebraska. And our Spirited Sport Award winner is Brian Teft Jr.
Do you get a separate award for being the most protested car?
I don't think so.
Nobody sold the car, so somebody else's car.
Somebody else, oh, it's him, who sold the car? Well, that's when we just put a pin in all of that. All right, how's everybody feeling? 5-minute break, go check your silent auction items, how's that sound? All right, the time is currently 8:18. Give you about 5 minutes, and do please go check on all of those silent auction items. Thank you.
That would be really funny.
As you're doing that, I need to realize as part of the purpose of the I'm allowed to take bribe to close the silent auction to win. So I've already got $1, and I'm going to take a high bidder. If I do better than $1, we'll see if we can work out with picking some of the silent auction items. And I will say, since I've got the microphone, James, shame on you for bidding up. Okay. I would now like to invite Jim Rollins to the podium to give us a rundown.
Fortunately, there's a nice elegance to the rallycross structure. Up through last year, there were only 9 classes, so that makes it easy. The hard part is that MiDiv won 10 trophies at Rallycross Nationals last year. So just to run down those, yeah, very prolific group. Yeah, that's definitely worth applause. Not only a small group, a very tight-knit group. So these are all people I know, and I'm really proud to announce a wide slate of trophy winners at Rallycross Nationals, which was held here at the artist formerly known as Prather Park, Topeka. Stock front-wheel drive starting at the stock classes. Second place, former national champion Donald Carl in the Oakland region. Fourth place, David Williams, who was here today from Kansas City region. His first Rallycross Nationals was bracketed by 2 former national champs, so split the difference. Finished a very respectable 4th in the stock front-wheel drive. Stock rear-wheel drive, we're used to seeing him running things. In 3rd place trophy position, Howard Duncan. Kansas region, I don't know if you've heard of him. Stock all-wheel drive, we're used to seeing him winning national championships. Kind of weird to see him in 2nd, Jan Gerber from Nebraska. Prepared front-wheel drive, again, another former national champion. Well, we just expect him to win, but only squeaked out a 2nd place this time. Robert Seelig, Bob Seelig from Oklahoma region. Prepared rear-wheel drive, a first-time nationals competitor, and won first, a national champion from Des Moines Valley region, Miles Gertz. Prepared all-wheel drive, a very, very tough class, 17 drivers in this class. 3 trophy spots in 5th place from Kansas City region, Mike Coombs. 2nd place, a prolific driver and a skilled one from Kansas region, Mark Hill. And squeaking just in front of him for a national championship from Kansas City region, Mark McCoubry. So really kicking butt in a tough class. And last but not least, this is a good story, modified rear-wheel drive. So the rules of modified, you have to have a production car, and from there it's whatever you want to do. So imagine what you would do with a modified rear-wheel drive car. That could be a Lamborghini with 1,000 horsepower. So winning a national championship for Nebraska region in a slug bug yellow 1971 Volkswagen Beetle, beating all manner of Porsches and other devices. First place, Doug Liebman. So a fun year for Rallycross, definitely a fun one for me. Didn't quite get the trophies this year, but good to see my friends getting there, so we'll see you next year.
So if you had your choice, Lamborghini or slug bug? Apparently it's slug bug. Takes it. Rocky for Club Awards and Driver of the Year, please.
Okay, I don't really think I'm going to be punch keeper for the remainder of the century.
Eat your vitamins, Rocky, eat your vitamins.
No, it's a wisecrack that holds a bit of a compliment underneath it that I find quite humbling. Now, I've been doing the job a while, I love doing the job, and for Jim to say something that suggests I might be doing it as long as I want to, thank you. Anyway, what I've told my kids, however, is that don't plan on an inheritance, I'm planning on making it to 100. My job here is, first of all, to read off the roster of MiDiv champions of the year. Keep in mind that under the GCR, a champion is whoever is tops in points whether or not they qualified for the awards that we give out. And we had a larger than in the past few years number of drivers who did win the awards, but there's a couple on the list who nonetheless didn't make it to a second track or something like that, but they were still the top points, and we recognize them all. Starting from Arkansas region with Touring 1 driver Chris Edens, is the champion. From Des Moines Valley, Formula Super Ken Denault, and IT7 David Vandenberg. In Kansas region, Spec Racer Ford 3rd generation, Grayson Strathman, who himself is 2nd generation. Super Production, Kent Prather, and ITA Drew Arnold. Kansas City, Formula Mazda, Larry Howard. Formula Ford, Cliff Johnson. Formula 500, David Vincent. Prototype 2, Bill Johnson, number 3. GT2, Mike McGinley. GT3, Brian Hopp. GT Light, Roy Lopsher. EP, Bill Miller, and American Sedan, Jim Wheeler. Some of them are in the audience, I know.
Go KC!
Mid-South region has Todd Fox, who won Spec Racer Ford in the last year that there will be a Spec Racer Ford at the runoffs. They can still run this season, but they have to run with the 3s. However, it's still a regional class. Nebraska has 5 of them. ST Light, Jake Anton. Touring 2, Nathan Waldbaum. Touring 4, James Wood. H Production, Ralph Lindo. And ITE, John Waldbaum. The Oakland region has STU champion Thomas Hawley. Ozark Mountain F Production champion Sam Henry. St. Louis has Formula Atlantic, James Wright. GT1, Michael Major. Spec Miata, Max Newford. Southern Illinois has ITB, Brian Prokop. And Wichita Racing has Formula V champion Michael Lauer. There is one other driver I kind of like to mention, even though he didn't even trophy in his class this year. Finished 4th, in fact, in his points. But then he had a little better day when he went to Indy and won the F Production National Championship and subsequently the Mark Donahue Award from the Road Racing Drivers Club of America. That'd be Eric Brill. The next chore is to get to the John Sauché Award, the Midwest Division Driver of the Year. Typically, this starts out by presenting the Keeper Award to last year's winner, Kim McDonald, who at the moment is allegedly on a work trip in Mexico. I hope he's enjoying it. So someone from Nebraska region, I understand, is supposed to come and collect this for Kim and take it home to him. And it will be Candy Gerber, who managed to schlep the big trophy down here. Thank you, Candy. Since Kim is not here, I'm going to turn this over to the other 2 members of the selection committee, which is last year's winner, the Midwest Division Executive Steward, and the Midwest Division Area Director. Jim Miklovic and Chris Alden.
This is perhaps, as the executive steward, one of the most pleasant parts of the job, as opposed to dealing with all the other things that stewards deal with and the reputations we get with people and everything else. This part is the reward for doing that. And I want to say that, when we select a driver of the year, it's not about who the fastest driver is. It's not about which driver accumulates the most points or anything else. It's about who is the driver of the year that exhibits great driving skill, exhibits great sportsmanship, and is truly a gentleman driver. And past recipients of this award, other than obviously John, included people like Chris Alden, and others. And so to actually talk about John, because Chris knew him very well, I'm going to let Chris sort of talk a little bit about John, the history of the award, and then we'll make the presentation.
Well, a lot of this room remembers John. I had several conversations with him. Usually it happened in Impound. And he had something to say about, let's just call it coaching. But John was a great driver. Rocky could tell you, I think it's a long string of championships. He was a fixture at our events. He's the appropriate person to be to have this trophy named, and remember every time every year when we get to present this trophy meant a lot to me. John was he's just the right guy. So a unique individual, and probably one of the most intense drivers I've come across, but yet very smart and calculated about it. So it's a very good trophy for him.
So tell them about this year's winner.
Well, this year's winner, again, is also a really good driver. But kind of goes to the other end of the spectrum when we talk about age, but not talent. He is not just this year, but he's demonstrated an extreme amount of skill, patience. He's just how should we say? He's a gentleman. He's he's just what we would want to, if we had to pick a representative of our sport, he is definitely somebody that would be perfect for that. And he's an awesome driver to boot. This year, he had a couple of wins at Gateway. I think 3 wins at Harbin Park, and a small car. And then to take things to a completely different spectrum, that was in a Spec Miata, and then a GT2 car with a win at Harbin Park and I think a second at Hallett Gateway. I mean, so it's not just being able to drive one kind of car. He can drive just about anything, and I think he demonstrated that. And I think he's a very good recipient, a great choice for this award. It's Max Newford.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this award. It's funny, it was about 3 years ago, about this day, Mr. Dan Miklovic and Mr. Peter Zeker were in my house interviewing me so I could get my license, because I was only 15 years old. So there were some hoops that I had to jump through at first. But to thank you so much to the Sports Car Club of America and all our regional directors around St. Louis for putting your trust in me and letting me go out on track and compete with all of you. That really means a lot. To be able to be so young and to have that trust put in me, to be able to race around people like you. It's a huge honor for me to even be standing in front of all you car-loving, very passionate, hard-working people this evening. First off, I really have to thank my parents for bringing me up through the ranks all these years, from karting to cars. It really means a lot to all the hard work and dedication and passion they've put in to bring me to this point. Thank you so much to all the SCCA workers. We could not do any of the cool things we get to do without you guys. You guys braved some crazy weather conditions, stand on the grid all day long so I can go out and race, and that means the world to me. You don't expect anything from it, and that is the coolest thing that you guys are able to do that, and I cannot thank you enough for everything. Thank you guys so much for this award.
Max, you have to hoist it. And I will say, I'll let him get his photo here, but as someone who has raced with Max, his choice of words, letting me race around you, quite literally applies. So we have, I'm sorry?
Is he allowed to look at the advisor?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing's going to jump out and get you. Tim will check you out there. We have a couple of more awards, and I know that we have a guest speaker as well. So we're going to cruise through the awards, and just before we break for the guest speaker, that's when we're going to close the silent auction. So again, my reminder, my mainstay up here is to go back and check those bids. Those of you bidding against James, you got a real chance if you just put a penny in. So
Until I come back with one more penny.
Yeah, do it stealthily. I would now like to welcome Jim Rowland back to the podium, who is going to present the permanent trophy for MiDiv Worker of the Year.
So it's pretty cool to come and stand in front of a room full of essentially workers, volunteers who make all this stuff happen. An honor to receive an award and a pretty cool treat to give it out. So we're going to give some permanent awards to some great folks. A family duo here. So we awarded it to 2 people at once last year, but we weren't so cheap. We weren't going to give just one permanent trophy to these folks. We're going to give separate trophies. So round of applause again for Ann and John Bowling.
Right, you're not done. No. It's your turn to announce the permanent. You have a important costume change.
Yes.
Just like your brother.
Okay, this year's Worker of the Year has attended multiple events. He's also worked as a line chief in Tennessee runoffs, and he always works hard and enthusiastically doing whatever is required. The Worker of the Year for 2018 is Ray Barker.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'm sorry to say that Ray's not here. Therefore, we're going to charge Charlene with taking the trophy back home with her. She's already been working here, so she probably won't lose it. And you guys can all email congratulations to Ray, but you got to do it tomorrow, because I didn't email him tonight and tell him he won.
She's accepting it.
She wasn't even going to attempt to come up on stage.
She left it out. She says,
Bring her up. Bobby, keeping you, as I said at the top, keeping the trains on time. Then you tried to miss anything. Next, Vicki, I'd like to invite you to the podium for the Broom Points Award, please.
Okay, I am giving out the Worker 100% Award, which means these folks, these 8 folks, were at every race this year, and I would like them to stand up. Janet Berry. And stay standing, because for a couple of minutes anyway, Bruce and Charlene Bettinger. Ann and John Bowling. Ryan DePay is not here. And Chris Kern. And me. And I have the 2017 100% patch that they can, some of them could, probably has one for each year now.
Thank you.
Those are indeed truly badges of honor. So as I mentioned, we're going to invite a guest speaker to join us. So if you have not made your final bids, now's the time to do so. I wish that the video camera was just turned a little bit for that. The tussle in the back, I love it. Our featured speaker tonight is really one that needs no introduction. His family is essentially a racing dynasty. He's a familiar face to all of us, both on and off the track. But I wanted to give everyone just a quick recap of accomplishments to frame this up for us. He started racing regionally in 2000 in MGB, then decided to jump up to the national level, racing in 2001 in EP. From 2002 to 2004, he ran an EP RX-7 that he took to the runoffs and placed, he said highest was 7th in that car. In 2005, he ran a GT3 RX-7 that Chrisman owned. In 2006, he became the FP National Champion in a Miata, and he apparently liked it so much that he went back the next year and did it again. For a change of scenery, in 2008, he jumped over to EP, winning, you guessed it, a national championship in, you guessed it, a Miata. He started Jesse Prather Motorsports in 2009, and that shop, as many of you are aware, have built more than their fair share of national championship podium engines and cars, including 5 national championships with customers running his engines since 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, to give us something to think about, if not to chase after, Jesse Prather.
Really, it's the waiting that's been killing me. I want to reiterate what Max said about the workers. I mean, I've been around racing forever. Without the workers, we can't go race. And you guys do such a good job, keep us safe. And it's really a thankless job, and I'd really like to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. When Donna emailed me about, coming and speaking at this, it's kind of funny. She did say, I was about the 6th choice. Thanks, Rick. So I've been around SCCA my whole life. I was born in 1976. I know some of you were probably working and racing back then, so this will be a little shorter speech than if you were up here. You're welcome. Oh, hold on a second. That's what the cool kids do these days, right? Technology. So, when I was growing up in the SCCA, we didn't have technology. Some of you may or may not know, but I was actually born in Virginia, and we lived in Virginia, up until I was a teenager. And I grew up going to Summit Point mainly. My dad's shop was about 2 hours from Summit Point, and that's where we lived. So we didn't have technology. You go to the track, And it was funny, I was talking to Claudine and Stevie earlier, and she was talking about how you guys were giving time scoring seminars today. Got me thinking about transponders. Well, when I was a kid, we used these stopwatches, right? And every now and then, they'd come on a loudspeaker, and they'd be looking for volunteers because they didn't have enough people to click the, you know what I'm talking about. So my brother and I, we'd go up to the tower, we'd get to sit up there, and they'd give us a couple of, these funny little things, and they'd give us a sheet with a driver and his number, and time this guy every time he comes by and write it down, which was pretty cool for us. And it was then that I realized the true meaning of conflict of interest when they handed me my dad's sheet. So anyway, when we were kids, we'd go to the track. We didn't have cell phones. My dad would unload our bicycles, and my brother and I, we'd hop on the bikes. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have helmets. We were just gone. We'd go to the corners. We'd pick out our favorite drivers, car numbers, and we'd just spectate the whole weekend. Technology distracts our kids these days a lot, and I know there's good things about technology. There's also bad things. Like I mentioned, when I became a freshman in high school, my parents decided we were going to move back to Kansas. They met at K-State, and they moved to Virginia, and we moved here between my freshman and sophomore year in high school, which is kind of tough for me, really, trying to learn new friends. But the funny thing was, of course, our whole life we went to SCCA road racing and club events. Come to Kansas, we have different tracks out here. We went down to Oklahoma and they're racing in parks. Hay bales and water buckets around the trees. We'd go down to Lake Atchison, Ponca City. But it was then that I got to learn about the drivers in this area, as a young man. Guys like Chris Altman driving his bright yellow, he's still driving bright yellow VWs. And back in those days, he was driving an ITV and whipping up on the entire IT field in an ITV VW. Pretty cool. And actually, it was kind of funny, but it was from watching him that I kind of learned what a real apex was about this far inside the apex. And I can remember seeing Charlie Clark and Tom Holstrom for years driving, running that Corvair. And going to the runoffs and seeing them rebuild engine after at the track, but they were dedicated. Tom Holstrom was such a good guy, and I fortunately had the pleasure of working with him, later in his career. But I really miss that guy. He was a good man. Brian Howe, running his Alphas. Back in those days, everybody ran full prep cars. There was no limited prep. And so you had all the British cars and everything else, as my dad would say. And then, and then we realized, and I came to realize, one of the biggest Formula V shops is in Kansas, the Nobles. I had no clue that they, lived in Kansas. Anyway, eventually graduated high school and decided it's time for me to do something else. Back in those days, and you guys are going to learn a lot about me that you didn't know tonight, but I kind of fancied myself as a little bit of a cowboy back in those days. And I'm talking like riding horses and stuff. So spent a year in college, really wasn't for me. So when I was 19, got a job working on a dude ranch in northern Idaho. Packed up everything I had, which was nothing, drove out there, and that is where I met that one. I've always said this, but behind a good man is a great woman, and I've got one of the best. After northern Idaho, we moved to Minneapolis, and that's when we got married, had our first child, Kendall. Eventually, my dad decided, or he convinced me that it was a good idea to move back to Kansas and work for him. That was 1999. And the thing that I hadn't thought about was Jamie, she's from Michigan, northern state. Met her in Idaho, then we lived in Minneapolis. Now, those are all northern states. We moved to Kansas, and she thought that I moved her to the gates of hell. It was hot in 1999. But she got over it and ended up meeting a great group of friends. Two of them are here tonight that she met when our children were very young. And ended up working with my dad. And I know most of you in here know him, probably pretty well. So, there's two ways of doing things. There's his way, and there's the wrong way. I know he's not here to defend himself. I think he'd agree. Anyway, first couple of years were a little tough. He and I may be a little too alike, so we butted heads a little bit. But eventually I got the opportunity to restore some of the race cars that he had in his shop and race them and get started racing, which was obviously a dream of mine. Deep down, I knew that British cars were not really my calling. I'm not sure what it was. It just felt like something was missing. And that's when a wonderful man by the name of Don Chrisman came into my life. And he brought this crazy thing called a rotary engine over and said, I need an engine builder, and I need you to learn about these engines. So I was like, it's a weird looking motor, but took it apart, was fascinated, and ended up building him an engine, and ended up buying an RX-7, starting to race in heat production with great racers like Charlie Clark and his son Chuck, and David Long was running one back in those days, and e-production was really flourishing. It was a really good learning experience for me. And then I started building engines, rotary engines for guys, kind of all over the country. Had a lot of success with that. And then another guy moved to Kansas, a guy by the name of Chris Bovis. Pretty much everybody knows who Chris Bovis is, certainly these days. And he called me and he said, I want to do a new car. He'd been running a Honda Prelude in e-production. He said, I want to do something different, something rear-wheel drive. And he said, I'm torn between a Fiat X19 and one of these new F-production Miatas. And they were pretty new back in these days. This was about 2004, 2005 maybe. So we ended up building a Miata. He raced it for a couple of years. He decided that he really loved the front-wheel drive cars, and anybody who's been paying any attention, he's done really well, and multiple-time national champion in those really cool Hondas for Tim Dentisi. But I ended up buying that car back from him, and it was like coming home. I mean, the car was everything I thought a car could be. And when Rick Harris won the national championship in 2008, it kind of solidified that it's almost all right. I'll wait. Like I was saying, when Rick Harris won his national championship in 2008, kind of solidified my spot in limited production Miata motors. And then in 2009, with the support of a fantastic spouse, we decided we were going to go out on our own. It was a big, big decision for us. And can't say my dad was all that happy about it at first, but I think he's okay with it now. And things have been really good for us. So these days for me, it's all about my customers, it's about my drivers, it's about my friends. And all of my customers are my friends, at least I try to make them that way. And try and help them reach their goals in racing. SCCA's always been a big part of my life, ever since I was a baby. And personally and professionally. And that has really blessed me in my life. I say we keep it going, and I'll see you guys all at the track. And just remember one thing, at JPM, we've got ideas we haven't even thought of. Thank you.
It's always cool when, for those of you who don't know, I did get to the runoffs. That was about it, but I did get there. But it's always cool when you're in with the big production tent, and there's the manufacturers there, and they're relying on people that you see every day, every weekend at the racetrack, that you could knock on the doors of the RV and get questions answered or parts that you need. So that's a really fantastic added value piece that you bring to MiDiv and all the racers that you support. Thank you very much for sharing with us. And Eric, since I got this close to being where you were, how did that feel as you rounded those last corners and those guys were coming up, giving you the bump? Congratulations after that checker flag.
It was all right.
It's all right. You do it again?
Sure, we'll do it again.
We're out capturing all this on video, so that's locked away now. You got to perform.
Sam paid me to take the runoffs back to Indy this year. There's a press release coming out apparently.
Very good.
We're not
All right.
going to snow, we're going back to
All right, well, you heard it here first. Your year just became a whole lot more competitive. Went on. Well, we just got a couple more pieces for this evening, but this is the kind of crown jewel that MiDiv gives out. It is a highly coveted award. It means a ton to the individuals that have received it and for future recipients as well. It is integral to the fabric of what MiDiv is and really speaks to the kind of character that I know we all want to build and engender within the club. And so I would like Janet Berry to join me on the podium to present the permanent award for the England's Time Award.
This permanent award goes to last year's recipient, Ken Patterson.
You moved too fast.
You moved too fast.
Here comes Janet. No, wait.
You're using up all this film. So now it's my opportunity to try to recover from last year, where I felt like I looked just like Monica and Ron did a few minutes ago, where I couldn't talk, I couldn't say anything, and I seemed pretty much like a babbling idiot. Well, I know some of you think that's what's new, but you know, that's okay. I was having trouble even completing a sentence. But this year, I hope to do better. I really can't say that I believe that I really earned this thing, because it's so important and the history is so strong in this thing, and I'm really honored by that. I look around in this room and most everybody here is such a good leader and such a good role model that I think you all earn this thing every year, and it's tough to make the call. So what I want to do first of all, to make sure everybody understands this thing, I'm going to read what it says here. The English Snipe Award, in memory of Margaret England and Mary Snipe. Snipe. I'm sorry, I can't talk today. See, there we go. Is to be awarded annually to the member of the Midwest Division, Sports Car Club of America, who has made the most outstanding long-term contribution to the club and to the sport. The award shall normally be presented annually at the Midwest Division Annual Convention. The award will be made only in those years that the selection committee determines that there is a worthy recipient. The selection committee shall be the three most recent recipients of the award. If any of the three most recipient awards, okay, Bill goes through a whole bunch of rules here, okay. So, if you happen to be one of these very fortunate people, please stand so everybody can give you credit for all your hard work. Okay, now for the fun part. page. Okay. This year's recipient is, well, maybe has been, a true leader for this division for many years. Is a great role model, well, most of the time. He's a great manager. In fact, this year's recipient has been called a visionary, tenacious and talented. Okay, come to think about it, he's been called just about everything. Seriously, this year's recipient has been a mentor to a large number of people in this room. Even now, if we really need help, this person finds a way to come out and support us. I'm going to make this easy now. This person has been awarded the following items. As soon as you want to guess, don't. Okay? Person has been awarded the David Morrell Award. Oh, yeah, that means he's a steward. Okay? But to give you a clue, it's the only time on record that we know of that he's been speechless. Okay? He's also been awarded the Wolf Bernardo Award. Okay? Yeah, been past chairman of the board of directors. And last, certainly not the most amazing, is that he was even elected to the SCCA Hall of Fame. Would you please join me in welcoming Bill Johnson II?
You're going to want to go ahead and stop the video just in case.
God, it's great to be back. There, other than him, you folks are wonderful. Prather, you did so good. Come help me. Thanks. I would thank my sons. A serious moment here. I wasn't planning on coming to this, and they came over and told my wife that they were taking me to this. And I said, I'm not going to the damn thing. I've been through 100 of them, and she announced that I was going. My sons, all three who raced, caused me to be here, and thank God they did that. Thank you, people. Keep up doing what you're doing. It's just, there's a friend that I would have never ever met in that race. Thank you. God damn it, I don't know what to say. I just donated $100.
It's not a requirement.
You're welcome. Price on it.
There are a lot of stories that everybody in the room none of them can be said on our microphone. So with that, we're going to wrap up. How's the silent auction?
We're getting close, we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
All of us we're hearing about off, thank her very much. Because I've been paying way too much attention to you.
Very good. Okay, very good. Well, I have some closing remarks. The coach will announce the silent auction winners, and then my understanding is the weather is nasty outside, so we can all go play in the snow here a little bit.
To just, okay.
So as we close out, I want to leave everyone
Stephen Johnson.
with this.
Johnson.
Think about
The boys
Jesse's
and the girls
church
against each other.
and how woven into his whole story, how much of our family was in more than one definition to his SCCA experience. And that has to do with meeting lots of people and traveling to different tracks and really trying to understand what makes the most sense of learning from other drivers and being with the workers and understanding and appreciating what they're doing. And so I want to get back to the topic of Twain and really say, take his advice. Go travel to a track or an event, SCCA or not, that you normally wouldn't. Very likely, it's going to be well we're seen. And when you put yourself out there, you'll find that
So we're gonna.
really, genuinely, this is a pretty easy group, right?
Is that right?
Everyone here essentially has the same common goal to burn loudly as much petroleum-derived fuel as possible in a race weekend.
I thought we.
And so to really put a fine point on this, I want to have everybody mark your calendars. The first Rallycross event is just 2 weeks away. 21 days till the first road rally. We're 56 days away from Hallett. Heartland Park hosts the area's first track night in 69 days.
I have looked at one.
Memphis has the first one. When is that?
What?
All right. If this tape was to be believed, March 22nd has the first track night. And then, so the solo season kicks off in 69 days at Heartland Park.
We decided we're gonna hand the sheets to say, but it's okay, I don't care.
There's a regional report, okay? And
That's why we can give that to Betty. Okay, so we still have to give this.
You only asked me for the original.
So we can all think of it. Okay, so what's the first one? The nearest one?
First week in April, I think?
Okay, so we know for sure April 7th, AC. Any others? March 15th? For Salina region, okay. Others?
Wichita's 1 week later.
Okay, Wichita's, so.
There is stuff going on.
Here, there is stuff going on. Get to it, have just by a quick show of hands, how many cars are ready? 4, 5? So, there's plenty of work to do before, there's plenty of work to do during the season. I implore you to get out, travel, make sure that you know what's happening around the regions, and if you're a club racer, get to a solo. If you're a solo racer, get to a rally. I broke the car. Turns out it's stuck into a tire wall and doesn't drive all that well afterwards.